Good afternoon, everybody. think I have about 10 minutes just to impress on you the need for extra aviation capacity and the difference that that will make to your businesses. I think one of the points that was made was, some things haven't changed since Thursday, but it's also worth reflecting. The government has been thinking about aviation capacity for a long time. In fact, it's been thinking about aviation capacity for over a decade before Britain joined the EU. And here we are, some 50 years on, and we still haven't made a decision. So, growth or inertia, that's the choice that we're faced with now. And I just want to give you an idea for what it is that Gatwick delivers to this process. So, first of all, is there a need for extra aviation capacity in the UK, an extra airport capacity? This chart illustrates the growth that we've seen at Gatwick over the last 6 years since we, as a private equity business, took the business over. So it's almost gone up from 31 million to 43 million in just that short space of time. We've also seen very strong growth at many other airports around the UK, whether that's Stansted, Luton, Manchester, Edinburgh, all performing very strongly. We are now needing extra runway capacity, particularly in the southeast, to make sure that we can deliver more outbound business people, but also, crucially, and most importantly for you, inbound visitors, whether they are business or whether they are visitors. So the dotted line on here, the red dotted line, what does that mean? What does the 40 million mean? The 40 million is the number that the Airports Commission only last year suggested Gatwick would be handling in terms of annual passenger numbers in 2025. We are over a decade ahead of those expectations from only about a year and a half ago. It gives an idea of the need for change. I wanted to spend a few minutes just talking about some of the change that has happened globally because it affects your business and it affects aviation moreover. And this isn't peering into the future. This is already upon us. We see global trade and global travel extending to its traditional heartland. Europe and North America will always remain important to us, but ever increasingly to the Far East, to the Southern Hemisphere. We need to be, as a country, reaching out to those parts of the world. And much of the debate around airport capacity seems to have revolved around how UK business people will be getting to other parts of the world. And yet I'll show you later with some data, it is more important that we figure out how do we get other people from around the world to come to the UK, whether it is to do business or to spend their leisure time and their leisure money. Now, the next 3 bullet points are a little bit more focused on aviation. How do people travel on airlines? There has been dramatic change over the last 10 years, 20 years, and this means an awful lot to the debate about the sort of capacity that we need. We see the growth of low-cost carriers. That used to be a pejorative word, low cost. Actually, it just means highly efficient. It means leaving more money in the pockets of travellers when they come here. You also see those low-cost businesses moving into the business market and now into the long-haul market. We see Norwegian launching international long-haul services from Gatwick and also from other airports around Europe, direct to other markets in the world, but also bringing them closer to us, travellers coming into London. And indeed, one of the cornerstones of Norwegian's business plan is about London being an important destination in its own right. And if you can drag and bring people into London, you can also then bring people into the rest of the UK. And indeed, Norwegian are in discussions with other airports around the UK to operate direct services. The Middle East, it's boomed in terms of travel in recent years, and it is not something that we should be frightened of. It means that people from the Middle East can get to Europe, can get to the UK far more easily. If you are living in Edinburgh, Manchester, Birmingham, London, you now have direct services into some of the world's major hubs, which are home to many, many tourists, but more importantly, beyond that, they aggregate demand, whether it's from Southeast Asia or China, through into London. And the other couple of things I'll just reflect on. The Monopolies and Mergers Commission broke up Gatwick, Heathrow and Stansted. It used to be a monopoly run by BHA. They recently did a review of the decisions that they made. And the important thing they observed is that service quality was better, at airports in the UK, prices were lower, and overall innovation was much higher. And they were making that observation not just about Gatwick. I mean, we've made enormous strides in this new environment, but because of the pressure that we put on airports such as Heathrow, they have to improve their service. They have to improve their offering to our collective passengers. And then finally, a 40-year moratorium on the development of a runway at Gatwick. Why is that important? It's because it is the main reason Gatwick has never been considered for the last 40 years for building an extra runway in the southeast. Legally, it was not allowed. From 2019, there is no impediment, and that's important. So, just maybe reflect on this. I think it gives you an idea of some of the long-haul services already served from Gatwick. I said this isn't about the future. This is about here and now. We already serve over 50 long-haul destinations. We're only a handful of European airports that actually do that. In fact, we're bigger than Rome, we're bigger than Madrid. In fact, we're the 12th busiest international airport in the world. We're bigger than JFK, we're bigger than Narita. We are a big business already drawing long-haul passengers into the UK. And the only thing that's stopping that is capacity. So you'll see just up here on the right-hand side, Tianjin Airlines now starting flights to Tianjin and Chongqing next year. In fact, not next year, this month. In fact, this week. And those are two of the 5 largest cities in China. This is about bringing Chinese people into London as much, and the UK, as much as it is about business people travelling overseas. So if you don't believe me, let's have a look at traffic from the Airports Commission. Here's a message you might not have heard before. It doesn't matter whether you develop Gatwick or Heathrow, the same number of travellers come to the UK. We all get the same benefits. And this data I'm going to share with you is from the Airports Commission. First of all, these 2 bar charts show if Heathrow were expanded, how many people are travelling to and from the UK? If Gatwick is expanded, how many people are travelling to and from the UK? The answer is the same number. In 2030, about 251 million. You can't put a cigarette paper between that data. It doesn't matter which one you expand. The important thing is capacity, which then allows the system to function. It allows long-haul flights maybe to come into Gatwick or to come into Heathrow or into Manchester. The one difference, though, there is between the two is that actually you see more growth across the UK. If Gatwick expands, that traffic is spread across the UK. Edinburgh, Manchester, Birmingham see a far larger share than if Heathrow is expanded. If Heathrow is expanded, they monopolise the market. And monopolies and no competition is not good. Okay, so maybe the passenger types are different. Maybe Gatwick just caters for leisure passengers. No. Whether it's UK leisure or near and dear, I hope, to your hearts, foreign leisure, foreign business, no difference. Same number of people travelling into the UK for holiday, for business. So maybe the question is, well, maybe they're all the business people or all the visitors are coming from Europe in the case of Gatwick. The answer again is, sorry, that's not correct. Now, this data you won't have seen before. This wasn't in the Airports Commission's report. We had to undertake a Freedom of Information request to get hold of this data. And I'm not surprised, because what it tells you is that whether it's Africa, Central Asia, East Asia, Middle East, North Africa, Oceania, or even Europe, there isn't any difference in terms of foreign leisure passengers. And I can break that down any time, any sector you want, business passengers. Any date you want, 2030, 2040, 2050, the story's the same. So, if we deliver the same for the UK and for this industry, the question now is, can it be delivered? And only Gatwick can deliver the capacity we need. And a picture tells 1,000 words. This is a picture of the expansion of the airport. And I'll probably draw your attention to a couple of things. So if you're familiar with the airport, this is the northern side, the existing part of the airport. This is the southern and expanded side. It's expanded into agricultural land and light industrial land. We don't demolish many houses at all, 100. And in fact, if you look off in the distance, you can see more agricultural land. What you don't see is houses. What you don't see are industrial areas, hotels, etc. That means it is cheaper and simpler to develop Gatwick than alternatives. You see the main rail line into London, very important. And from where this picture is effectively taken, you're hovering over the M23. We're not planning on tunnelling the M23, which leads to the M25, or the main railway line. It's cheaper and simpler, and because of that, it is faster. And because we are where we are, it is cleaner and quieter. So, on the back of that, we as a business are able to make a series of pledges to the government. We've written to the Prime Minister, we'll probably write to the new Prime Minister, to emphasise the fact that these are things that we can now attain. It is now about delivery. So the first three of those are fairly obvious. We can actually deliver it quickly. This isn't a question about waiting. This is something that can be executed now. And even allowing for a 5-year government planning process, we can then deliver a new runway for the South East, which then means more capacity for the UK overall by 2025. The growth is spread across the UK, and we can also offer a cap on passenger charges. I am able to guarantee that prices won't go above £15 inflation linked. £15 for landing at Gatwick. That is just over half the amount that it is today at Heathrow, and is way below a half, in fact, is probably about a third of what it would be if you expanded at Heathrow. So money paying for concrete to tunnel the M25 instead of putting it into our pockets as an economy, coming into the hospitality sector, coming here to do business, buying another beer in the bar, buying some food at your restaurants, whatever that might mean. Money matters, because I think the other thing is that many travellers to the UK are short-haul travellers. They are cost-conscious. And hospitality, in a sense, is a broad church. There are many people who travel, who are catered for, who may be more cost-conscious. And then finally, promises that we can make to actually make this happen now, and that's we don't require a penny of taxpayers' money. We can do it in a legal manner from an air quality perspective. We can cap the number of people affected by noise because we have to reduce the impact on people. If we want the growth, we have to do it in an environmentally sustainable way. And our shareholders are committed to that. So I hope that's given you an idea why 10 years on from exiting the EU, we will have a runway and we can have a runway. And I hope any questions, I might open up the floor. Otherwise, the next group are on. Any questions? Sure.
Are you planning any additional hotels in your expansion of Gatwick?
Yes, there are areas that are set aside for hotels. So in terms of the, I can't picture it now, but in terms of the land use set aside, we have various areas that are set aside for hotels in terms of hotel planning.
Any particular hotels? I mean, are you going to be forward thinking and bring in alternative hotels, or are you going after the kind of hotels and superb hotels that you have now?
Well, obviously, as we go forward, we tend to competitively tender all of our opportunities. We will own certain amounts of land that we will be able to develop. There are other areas, and you must also remember this, that we might not own the land. So the opportunity is there as part of the planning process to get that sort of area, even if it isn't owned by us, zoned to be for hotels.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, how, with this referendum, how far is the whole planning, development of the next runway at Gatwick? How far has it been delayed as a result of this?
Well, I think the government could make a decision now if it wanted to. But one has the sense that many of those decisions are going to be left to a new Prime Minister. But again, in terms of the level of development with our proposal, it's no surprise that the government has been keeping all of the options open for as long as possible. And that means that if the government made a decision now, or the government made a decision in October, we're ready to go.
Yeah, I think
Okay, good. Thank you very much.